The boy in white has been one of the most mysterious characters in this entire show, and there's actually a lot showing that he is actually the one in control of the monsters.
Been so long since he went away.
When was that?
Oh, it's been a while.
It's laughing at you for bringing it back to town, for setting it free.
Victor says in season 3 that the boy in white was his only friend for multiple years or possibly decades when he was living alone in the town after the massacre. But more importantly, there's multiple scenes where Victor says that he hadn't seen the boy in a very long time. And there's always been a debate about where he was or why he wasn't appearing to Victor after a certain time had passed. But I think one of the biggest clues is something everyone keeps ignoring, and that is there was something laughing at Boyd for setting it free, and we still don't exactly know when Boyd actually set whatever that was free. But considering the fact that the voices told Sarah about Fatima being in the root cellar were also laughing at them for being unable to save her, I think the writers want us to understand that the voice at the ruins and the voices Sarah hears in season 3 are one and the same, and that they could actually be the boy.
All night long they'd shriek, drove people crazy. That all stopped once we got the talismans. Then they started to whisper. I always wondered about that.
One of the biggest hints that whatever was laughing at Boyd was actually set free when he took the talismans from the stone hut, rather than when he was infected with the worms, is that the writers specifically added this line of the monsters changing after Boyd found the talismans. And I think what they were telling us at this moment was whoever it was that put all the talismans together in that stone hut was actually doing it because they wanted to trap the entity inside. And so Boyd taking the talismans is what actually freed this entity controlling the voices to begin with. It's also possible that the monsters herded Boyd specifically into this stone hut so that he could free the entity, so that he could free their boss. And if the boy and the entity are in fact one and the same, it would explain why Victor hadn't seen him in such a long time, because the entity could have been trapped by the talismans this entire time. And that could be part of why the monsters only changed after the talismans were found, because the entity obviously can't upgrade the monsters while he was imprisoned.
He said that you would come. Boy in white, he said that you would come, that I should wait.
Victor says it was the boy in white who told him to wait for Tabitha to fall through the basement, and this is absolutely huge because we know Victor spent at least 3 whole nights in these tunnels waiting for Tabitha, and remember, these are the same tunnels where the monsters have been sleeping in this entire time. When Julie describes Victor pushing her into the tree, it was already morning, which means Victor had already spent 1 night in the tunnels. And there's this scene where Boyd tells Sarah they have to camp at the stone hut for the night because everything beyond that is uncharted territory, and this means the night where Boyd's tent is dragged in the forest was at least the 3rd night Victor spent in the tunnels. And so logically, when Tabitha fell through the basement, Victor was going on his 4th night in the tunnels with the monsters. And this is insane because it means that the boy in white can somehow prevent the monsters from attacking people. And obviously, if he's the one actually in control of them, that would make perfect sense. And it would also explain how he was supposedly keeping Victor alive after the massacre. And it can't be that Victor was going to the pitch truck because remember, we've already seen it takes at best a few hours, if not a couple dozen minutes, to go from the peach truck back to the town. So if Victor was able to go to the peach truck, why wouldn't he have just gone back to the town? The only logical answer is that the boy specifically told Victor not to leave the tunnels. And considering he was never attacked by the monsters, the boy must have some ability to keep the monsters from killing Victor while he was in the tunnels. I also want to point out Victor did not have a talisman when all of this was happening, because after they left the tunnels, it was Boyd specifically who gave Victor and Tabitha a talisman in the peach truck. Because the boy told Victor to wait for Tabitha, we conclusively know that the boy in white had knowledge about Tabitha digging the hole in the basement, and this might be a hint that the boy in white and the voice that called Jim Matthews on the radio might have been the same being this entire time, because remember, that voice also knew about Tabitha digging the hole.
I'm cooling. I'm cooling.
Anything else you can tell me about little boy?
I don't think he really was a little boy.
One thing that is an objective fact about the boy in white is that he is very manipulative. Time and time again, we see him forcing people into specific situations and intentionally lying to them. The writers specifically had Sarah saying that he isn't actually a little boy. This means that the boy in white specifically chooses to appear in this form in order to make himself more trustworthy. And this matches up with him using the voices of the Ankui children to get Tabitha to climb to the top of the lighthouse. And something that needs to be said that nobody ever talks about is that the cave drawings show that the lighthouse is owned by the red jellyfish, and the red jellyfish is obviously the same being controlling the monsters. And because the boy and the voice on the radio both knew about Tabitha digging the hole, as well as us literally seeing the boy changing his voice to sound like the Ankui kids when Tabitha was climbing the lighthouse, this could be the writers telling us that these actions were being taken by the same entity. And considering the voices were also laughing at Boyd at the ruins for setting them free and laughing at him for being unable to save Fatima, if the boy in white and the voices are really one and the same, then the boy himself would also obviously be evil.
The boy in white was trying to tell Christopher that to save the children, he would have to go through the tree.
Everything lies here.
The boy told Christopher that he would have to go into the tree if he wanted to save the children. The reason this is so important is because this is yet another clue that the boy himself is the one who decides where the trees send you, and therefore he would also have been the one who sent Dale into the walls of the pool. Every single scene where anybody uses a tree successfully in the entire show, the boy in white was always very close by. When Victor sent Julie into the tree, the boy was there. When Sarah went into the church basement, the boy was there. When Tabitha goes into the tree that took her to the lighthouse, he was right there waiting for Tabitha. But more importantly, when Boyd was sent into the dungeon, the same dungeon where he got infected with the worms and the music box, the boy was clearly right there. So the boy being in control of the faraway trees would be perfectly in line with everything we have seen. And therefore, Dale being sent into the tree would also have to have been by design.
I'm sorry. This is the only way.
What the
Because the monsters had set a trap specifically to get the ambulance to stop at that specific point in the road, this logically means that the entity controlling the monsters had knowledge in advance that the ambulance would be coming into the town. And considering the voice on the phone is the only reason Jim Matthews ended up on the ambulance, it's fair to say the entity knew very well that Tabitha was also going to be coming back. The one thing you need to remember about this situation is that it was the boy specifically who pushed Tabitha out of Fromland. And it was also the boy who appeared to Tabitha while she was in Camden, Maine. And considering how easily and quickly Tabitha was dragged back into the town, this says to me that the boy allowed Tabitha to leave because he knew he could bring her back in anytime that he wanted. And considering the monsters knew in advance that the ambulance would also be coming, this shows that there's a very, very high chance that it was the boy himself who told the monsters to set that trap. Because remember, he was watching Tabitha that entire time. And the fact that the writers had Randall specifically mentioning that this was the one night they didn't follow their usual routines definitely supports that the monsters were following a plan made by whoever's actually controlling them.
Gonna be a great mom.
You're pregnant? I just remembered my dream.
about the dream?
There was this boy, all dressed in white.
One of the craziest things that people always ignore about the boy in white is that we have conclusive evidence that he can insert dreams into the minds of people. And the reason why this is so terrifying is because it has massive implications on the story itself. For example, Tabitha believes that her quest to save the children is somehow righteous or correct because she had repeating nightmares about Fromland, but this is a huge mistake because we know at least one entity in Fromland has the ability to manipulate people's dreams and make them see whatever it is that he wants them to see. It's obviously not a coincidence that Elgin's memories about his dream were triggered by the mention of Fatima's pregnancy. Just like Tabitha was being groomed since birth to play this role of saving the children, it's very possible that Elgin himself was also being groomed for a very long time through visions and dreams for this specific task of ensuring a woman's demonic pregnancy would come to term after he was dragged into the town by the entity.
She heard voices and she tried to murder our child.
But that's different. Those things happened once we got here, but my dream.
Tabitha's dreams aren't any sort of indicator that her role is actually moral and justified. She could very well be getting tricked this entire time. Because of the boy in white, we know at least one entity has the ability to manipulate dreams, and we already know that the boy in white's power extends outside the town, which means Tabitha could easily just be getting played like all these other fools we've already seen in the town. And one thing that needs to be said about Tabitha is that reincarnation doesn't explain what's going on, because reincarnation doesn't mean that your soul always gets sent into the same species, and it definitely doesn't mean that you get sent into the same gender every time, like what we see with Victor's mom and Tabitha. The boy also chooses Christopher to supposedly save the children, not Victor's mom. So whatever's going on with this supposed role of saving the children isn't as simple as reincarnation. I think the boy changed his strategy after he failed to convince Christopher to go to the tree. I think he realized he needs to start manipulating people years and decades in advance to prime them for that specific role. And that's why Tabitha was getting visions while she was a child. Because Victor was the one who told her, it seems his mom didn't actually know about the bottle trees and all that jazz about saving the children in the lighthouse. And this could be a hint that Victor's dad was evil this entire time and that he's been lying about the paintings, but I guess we have to wait and see. Another possibility is that the entity just wanted to traumatize Victor specifically to make him easier to control, and he always wanted Victor to send his own mom to the bottle tree where the entity had already set up an ambush with the smiley, and basically that entire thing was just a setup to get Victor to trust the boy. Maybe that's actually what's going on there.
You're supposed to be my friend. Why won't you help us? All those years you look the same.
Everything's changing now.
The craziest thing about this entire season is that we've seen all of the entity's plans are genuinely working. The entity is winning. All of his plans are succeeding. He's finally found the perfect strategy to maintain hope so that the people will strive to stay alive, but also extract maximum fear so that he himself ensures that he's happily fed. And I definitely believe the whole freeing the children in the tower shtick is just another part of that plan. Because remember, the cave drawings clearly show that the lighthouse is owned by the jellyfish. And we already know the boy in white wasn't freed by Victor's mom. He was already walking around before that because we see him talking to Christopher. We also now know Smiley isn't from Victor's cycle, and that might be why the monsters look like they're from the 50s or whatever. And because Victor's mom died before reaching the tree, it seems that Victor's sister as well is probably still in Fromland. Maybe she was that demonic kid locked up in the tunnels, or maybe she's the monster knocking on the cabins, who knows. It's also possible the boy in white specifically wanted Elgin to come into the town because of Fatima's baby, and he wanted Marielle to use her as a cicada victim, and of course, because she was Christie's fiancée, we already know that he can control who comes in and who goes out because of what happened with Tabitha. And considering Fatima killed Tilly, it's very possible that the tarot cards she kept using were somehow being manipulated by the boy as well. All in all, whether the boy in white is actually good or not, it's obvious that whoever's actually controlling the monsters is definitely winning the game, and that's because the people in this town are complete idiots. Like, even after Boyd saw some creepy thing claiming to be his wife trying to manipulate him, and that the monsters set up an entire strategy specifically to break him, he still doesn't understand that the monsters are just soldiers for a much greater being, and he doesn't even understand that they are more than animals. And it just makes these people look like idiots. Like, Jim literally told Boyd that there was a voice on the radio that knew about Tabitha digging the hole in the basement. Like, come on, man, you're telling me Boyd can't put two and two together and realize whoever told the monsters what he said that day in the forest is also probably the same being that knew about Tabitha digging that hole in the basement? It's crazy how these people just block out such crucial pieces of information from their memories. Boyd literally says in season 3 episode 1 that he knows it wasn't Abby in the dungeon when he talks to Father Cartry, and yet he still can't connect the dots that there's clearly something very powerful working with the monsters and trying to destroy the people of this town. It's crazy how stupid these people are. Tabitha literally came back talking about borrow trees, and Boyd still didn't think it's important to mention that he also found a borrow tree when he was out with Sarah in the woods until after he saw Jade trying to figure out the numbers. It's what? It's insane how these people are written, because it makes them all look like fools. It's just like how the cave drawings are obviously important, and yet almost 20 episodes after we saw them, we still haven't had a single person going down into those caves to analyze them. And even after all this time, we still don't even know if that horn Boyd and Sarah were hearing actually came from the lighthouse or not. I definitely think it signifies the Fromland portal being opened up, but where the hell is it coming from? That's the question. Saying it's coming from the lighthouse is just a theory. Nothing has been confirmed. It's been 20 episodes. Nothing has been confirmed. And what exactly was the point of making such a big deal of Jade's vision of the colonial man if you're literally not gonna progress that storyline in any way for the entirety of the season? I have no idea what the writers are doing, but the constant teasing and giving me blue balls by making zero effort to provide satisfaction is not enjoyable. But I also have to say, when the writers do something well, they do not disappoint. A good example of this is Boyd killing Smiley. Absolutely no one expected that to happen. There was absolutely nothing showing that it would happen, and the fact that it did was absolutely amazing. And of course, the voice on the radio. Both of these scenes were absolutely phenomenal, and I absolutely loved them. The voice on the radio especially completely blew my mind, and it's definitely one of the best scenes in the entire show. And I really hope that whatever the season 3 episode 10 cliffhanger actually is ends up being at least half that good, because after all this, they definitely need to make that ending be completely mind-blowing.